I'm in Sural, Bhatori. It's a village in the Chamba district of Himachal Pradesh. To better explain where this is and why I am here, maybe I'll start from the end of Miyar Valley. So after that, I came back to Udaipur. Then from Udaipur, there is a road which continues on towards Jammu, and on that road, 5 kilometers ahead, there's a village called Madgram, and so I stayed there for a few days, relaxed, did a few housekeeping things. So I mean, the biggest one was, so I had a really nice pair of cotton pants, semi-formal cotton pants, which I had gotten a few days before I started my trip, and so those were like uh, perfect for my trip because they're very light, they were very airy, and the fabric was very soft, and uh, I mean, dirt would not really stick onto it. You could like wipe it off very easily, and it would dry very quickly. So it was like a perfect combination, and they were like cheap. I think 900 bucks. Uh, but yeah, I had been a bit concerned that they might like give up at some point, given the treatment I was giving them, and so that had happened when I was returning from my ad, and they had become torn. So that is I mean, of course I knew I would be able to get new pants in Udaipur. There's shops there, but I mean, I didn't want those trekking pants. I mean, they're like sort of very heavy, and uh, like they don't seem comfortable to me. I've tried them a few times, and they also make that icky plastic sound. And so yeah, I thought I'll get those, but those I didn't want. Anyways, I went to that one of the shops, and I got lucky. I got a pair of linen pants, and they are like almost like the functionally they are equivalent to the cotton pants I had. They're a bit different. This is linen, but it's thin linen, so it's quite airy, but it's a bit let's say warmer than the cotton ones, which is fine, I think. Uh, Although it does get very hot sometimes when the skies are clear and there is sun overhead, but yeah, that is fine. In terms of get like drying, these don't dry quickly. What happens with them, the mechanism is a bit different. They don't get wet because water, even though water doesn't soak into the fabric, it stays on the surface. So you can give it a nice whip, and all the water will just like dispel away. I mean, yesterday coming here, I got quite wet because it was raining. I mean, it was a drizzle when I had started, but when I was coming up these mountains to the village, it had become a rain, and like anyway, so I was quite wet. But when these pants were dry, these were the first things which became dry. So yeah, so that was one big housekeeping task I managed to complete. The other one was the Airtel SIM did not work where the Madgaon, the village I was staying at. So I could not watch the Formula One race which I had missed when I was in Madgaon. So I bought a new SIM. I anyways needed it. Uh, Turns out because I was coming in this direction, Airtel doesn't work here. So that is maybe jumping one step ahead. So what happened was I was staying there, just chilling, getting new pants, watching F1 races, and I had thought I'll just like relax there and then head back, because I had thought of coming on this road to that road which continues on from Udaipur towards Jammu. Earlier also I had thought of that, but people had said that the road is quite bad, and so that's why I had given up the idea. The other reason I had given up the idea because I didn't really have a destination. I mean, Jammu could have been a destination, but it was quite far. So yeah, the road being bad and the lack of a destination were the reasons why I was not coming in this direction. So where I was staying, so what happened is a few people came, a group, and so they were the reconnaissance group for Discovery Channel. They were scouting in places for, I guess, filming their next show. So they had come from Ladakh that day, and I was talking to one of them. So the thing is, the highway is closed, the Leh Manali highway is closed, but there is a backup road which was sort of my backup. I thought I'll head back, and if the highway is still closed, I'll go with the backup road. That backup road I knew had opened. It's a road which doesn't go to the same place in Ladakh, so to going to Leh from that road would be longer, but it does go to Ladakh, so I would be able to cross over. Then I might be able to find a way in within Ladakh itself, and that goes from a place called Shinkula. That's a Shinkula pass. So he said that road is in a really bad condition right now. I mean, at some point it will be trekkable, like it will be a nice trek or a cycle road. But at this time of the year, in this weather, that road is really not navigable. So that backup option is gone. Plus, the main highway has not opened. So that is news I got, that going back from Udaipur, I won't really find anything back. And second bit of information he gave me was a destination. So what he said was, so they were going to come in here, the Chamba valley, the Pangi valley it's called, where Kilad is, and then they'll come to a village called Sural Bhatori, which has a nice waterfall, and they're going to scout that location. So I didn't know much, but I figured if it is worth enough for them to scout, maybe that is good enough for my destination. And so this is the way that God planned my itinerary. And so yeah, that's why I head out now. You can see a waterfall here. This is not the I mean, I am not sure, but this is, I don't think this is the one. They are like waterfalls here, like this entire, you can see a rock face. There are many places where there are waterfalls, and there's not much water here right now, but I think in the summers there'll be a lot more, and so many of them will become quite prominent falls. This one will also fill up, but there's one there in the crevice in the middle. There's a cavern sort of a space, huge. It's like a cathedral sort of a space in the middle, with rocks on two sides, I mean three sides I guess, and there's a waterfall in the middle. Right now it's not very huge, but again, in summers I think two things will happen. Firstly, the flow of water will increase, so this one will become much bigger. Secondly, I think there will be a sister waterfall right next to it, because this is space. I can see some water is dripping from there. And the second thing which will happen is there will be flowers, I think. I mean, there will be flowers in many of the other like places, because you can see small flowers here and there sprinkled around, but especially in that cavern where the waterfall is, there are lots of small flowers. So I think that will be like much more beautiful place than the Martian looking landscape that you might see right now in the current footage. So yeah, this became my destination. I mean, I saw it after coming here. This it was a destination for destination's sake. I mean, I wasn't really coming here for the waterfall. It was a reason I invented. So anyways, I set out from Madram. So the road was as bad as people had said, and it's so it's not a dangerous road. So what is happening there is, BRO, the Border Roads Organization, is trying to like make it into a two-lane highway, and so they have made up the space. I mean, mostly. I mean, there are still places where they have only blasted through the rocks for one lane. But I would say in the majority of places they have blasted through, or have made like the surface of the road which is for two lanes. So that part is done, but they have not actually laid down the tarmac in the majority of the road. So what is there is the lower layer, which is just like small pebbles and sand, and that is a very abrasive surface, and it's very bumpy, and it is continuously bumpy. So you both get friction, and so I mean, if you have some momentum, you can't maintain the momentum, and so you have to keep on pedaling. And the second thing, it is continuously bumpy, and like, I mean, the road to Miyar was also bad. I mean, it was bad in a different way, because it was a road, but because of snowfall and continuous landslides, and it had like become broken, but it was still okay. You could get a bit of traction in places, and Plus it was only 25 kilometers. You could like mentally prepare yourself. Now this one I knew was 86 kilometers, and it did not show any sign of improving when I left, at least. So I left, and the other thing was, I thought there'll be like, although I did not expect too many shops, but I expected there to be like some shops, or at least one shop. What happened was, the first milestone, if you start from Udaipur, is the next one is Tindi, which is like 20 something kilometers. From Madgaon, where I started, it is 18 kilometers. So between Madgaon and Tindi, there is nothing. No villages, no houses, nothing, no shops, nothing. And it's just like 18 kilometers of very bad road where it is very slow going. And what made it sort of worse was that it was downhill. So I'll tell you why it made it worse. Because I was going, there were places where I was going a bit fast, and I knew coming back on the same place would be like hell. So uh, that was not. I mean, I guess I had to pay the price one direction, but yeah, I don't know. I already Udaipur is downhill from Tandi, where I had started from initially. So now the time it keeps on going downhill. So I basically will have to go all the way back up, and somehow this is quite bad road. So that is, I mean, that was not adding to. That was adding to my misery, and so there was nothing. I kept. I mean, it's not. It's completely barren, and the landscape is actually quite good, I would say, but uh, it is barren, and it's although it is not isolated, because there are I mean, there are either those Mahindra campers, which those vehicles that taxis people are taking, or there are actually buses which go from Udaipur to Kilad and back. There's actually a bus which comes till village also from Kilad. But yeah, anyways, but yes, coming back. So yeah, there is traffic there. I mean, and there are also those BRO workers. So I mean, you either meet a vehicle or some of those workers every 15 minutes. So it is not isolated in that sense, but there is nothing else. I mean, there are humans around every 15 minutes or so, but otherwise it's just a very bumpy and a bad road. So I reached Tindi. There's a shop there, dhaba there, with tea, and there was very fresh water. I guess it was a mixture of my thirst and the water being very fresh. Which was, I mean, there was a pipe which was coming from the top of the hill, uh, and so yeah, I had my fill, and of both caffeine and water, and then I continued on. So I could see the Tindi village from there, and it looked like a pretty big village. Now that is where I sort of made my mistake. I assumed after this point it will not be so barren, and that was the mistake. Because firstly, the Tindi village is on the other side of the river. So to get to that village, you have to cross through a bridge, and I mean, it's like a 2-3 kilometer detour. So it's not, since it is not on the highway, there are no homestays there either. And now after Tindi, the next thing on the milestone is a village called Shore, and that is 20 kilometers ahead. So it turned out between Tindi and Shore, it is the same story again. The landscape is not that barren. The road actually improves. There was one place where they have paved a tarmac, so it is like a fantastic 2-lane highway with like a beautiful view and like a deep valley running next to it, green hills, icy like snow-capped mountains, and I mean all that you could ask for. The river sound as it snakes through that valley, and like a very clean surface. uh, the road is completely empty. You're just like driving a cycle at high speed in seventh gear on that road, and like it's very nice and curvy, fantastic. The problem is it ended after like, I think like 3-4 kilometers. Then it was back to that same old story again. But generally the road after Tindi is a bit better. The views, like it's a bit more greener also, and there are villages which you can see. It's not as barren, but still there are no shops. So yeah, I reached Shore There is a forest department guest house there, and that chowkidar was not willing to give me a room. I could have haggled with him, but there was at that point someone told me that there is one more village 5 kilometers ahead where there is definitely a place to stay. So I was like, okay, anyways, I'll go there because there'll be also be food to eat. There was no food in that guest house. So yeah, I continued on. I came to a place called Purti, and there was a dhaba there. There is a next to the dhaba. I mean, right next to the dhaba, there is a room. That is what. It's not a homestay. It's very basic, and the food is also very basic. I mean, it's a very small village, so I mean, nothing to speak of. But it was the first accommodation I found, and so the mistake I made was that I did not ask around in the dhaba in Tindi if there is a place to stay, so that I could make a halt there at night on the way back, depending on how much time it takes me. I still don't know. There is also supposed to be a forest department transit hut in Tindi. Uh, I think it is supposed to be behind that dhaba. I did see a building, it looked closed. Um, I don't really trust the forest department chowkidars to give me a room. I don't know if it is open. So, I mean, uh, like it is very likely that between that dhaba in Tindi and that transit hut, I should be able to find accommodation, but it is not certain. So if I had only asked when I was coming, I would have known for certain. But anyways, so yeah, so I stayed in that place Purti for the night. Uh, then the next day I started again beautiful views, just like really stunning views in Chamba. I think this is why Chamba is called the place of valleys and uh, uh, and I mean, I think it should also be called a place of waterfalls, because they're like waterfalls everywhere you look, here and there, and they're like I mean, some of them are really like falling from very big heights, and they're like multiple waterfalls they make, because they'll fall one step, then they'll like roam around, and then they'll fall one more step. So, and these are very huge waterfalls, huge valleys, and this is a very different scenery than it was in Lahaul, and it's also greener, I guess, partially because I am later in the year. I mean, even though it's been like a 10-day difference since I was in Lahore, but I think those 10 days have made a difference. I mean, I could see a difference in Udaipur in the 5 days I was going to Miyar. So it's becoming green quite rapidly. I mean, the front of the mountain in front, you can see it's already green. This is a less green, and this will be also be green. And but yeah, so anyways, I then reached Kilad. I stayed over at Kilad at night. So there was no electricity there. I, I went to a dhaba, and then I had to eat a lot, so that because I was charging my phone while I was sitting in the dhaba. They were running a generator, so I had to eat a lot. I had to also drink a lot of teas. Not that I'm complaining, but until my phone got charged. And yeah, so anyways, the next day I started for this Sural Bhatori, and so this is like 25 kilometers from Kilad. Again, when I left Kilad, there was a stretch where it's slightly downhill, and that road has been paved. So I think I made like I was going, I don't know what speed, but I was like going very fast, and not even I mean, of course the tire was bubbling, but I was not really fearing, because that road is so wide and empty, and the tarmac is so fresh, that I was like just zipping away. And that joy was short-lived again, because after the first turn, that road came back to being how it was. There is actually a very scary looking, it's not, the road is not scary, it's very safe-ish, but it looks very scary. It's like a steep um, this straight rock face, and they have blasted a road through it. They're still blasting more, and yeah, then you enter this valley, and at the entry of this valley, there is a like a stream which goes on and meets a river, Chandrabhaga, which has by now become huge. So then you continue up from where that stream joins the Chandrabhaga river, and you come on, and then you come to this set of sister villages. And The lower one is called Tal and Sural Tal, and there is the upper one is called Bhatori, and then there's a waterfall. You can see the monastery of the village there. There is like this place is, I mean, there's a homestay in Tal where I'm staying. It's a very cozy homestay. So what happened was I got wet yesterday. Then I got that homestay, and the room is there was no electricity, and that room is like made of wood. So it's a bit dark, but the bedding is like clean, and it's like a nice bed. They're like warm blankets and lots of them. So it's like very warm and cozy inside, and there is a window where there's a bit of light streaming in from. And then it was, so I had changed into dry clothes, and it had started, the rain had become really angry by then. So I could hear the rain outside, and it was such a nice sheltered feeling inside. And yeah, I also they also like the person whose house it is, they also served very nice food. Um One new thing I had yesterday was, so here in Chamba, apparently curry is quite common. I've had it in all the days I've been here. And so the twist he did was he added bundi into the curry. I don't know if it's a common thing or something he does, or it's common in this sort of villages, but it was a nice thing. I think we should also try it a bit more. It felt nice. And yeah, so you come out, and there are like people farming, front, back, left, right, all places. And right in front of you is a mountain which is full of like snow. And yeah uh, then so a bit up from the Sural Tal is Sural Bhatori. That's that's the monastery I already told you. The village is down there, and this looks like a temporary village, sort of or some temporary housing people are constructing. They could be villagers, or I guess they might be cow herds, and the shepherds who are coming here, because you can see lots of buffaloes having the time of their life there. And I mean, you can also see cows here. I also went ahead. This is the road which will go to Zanskar. Not the road, sorry, it's a trek. uh, and I don't know how far it is. I actually don't have an idea where it will end up on, or how long it is. There was a trail for further on, but there wasn't anything else so I just like turned back. I don't want to go to Zanskar without my cycle anyways. And yeah, what will probably happen is there will be lots of those cow herds who will be going on that road, because as it gets more and more populated here, because of, I mean, everyone will be bring, just like Miyar, people will be bringing their livestock here for grazing. So there'll be competition. So people will just like the more like pro of the cow herds will just keep on continuing further ahead. And yeah, I'm standing on top of the village that I was staying at. That is the village Sural Tal. That's where the homestay is, and that is in front of that is the mountain. So you will have to excuse the wind. I am trying to find the quietest spot, which is very hard right now to show you this place. Uh, it's very windy right now because the clouds are playing with the sun. This place is just unexpectedly amazing, because with the waterfall I had an expectation, the Delvian waterfall. This was not I was not expecting this here. So this is a pretty big green plain. That is the helipad. It's still under construction. And there's a cricket ground here, because of course there's a cricket ground. People here in Chamba love the cricket grounds, and I mean, I've seen cricket grounds in all sorts of places. Coming here, in fact, I saw one very interesting one at the start of this valley. So there was a helipad there. There was a boundary marked along it. Initially I thought it was for guiding the helicopter, but no, there were flags marking the boundary, and that ground was in two levels. So there was that level 0, which was most of the helipad, and then one part of the outfield was level 1 on a height. And yeah, look at the amazing patterns that the snow has made as it has come down this crevice. This is so high, and it is not like there's no vertigo here. It's barely fitting into the camera viewfinder. Yeah, and of course there's a waterfall because this is Chamba after all. The stream goes right along the village, yes, and there it will meet the bigger stream which is coming from where we were, and that bigger stream will go all along the valley and meet the Chenab river.